Hello, I'm here interviewing another deaf professional about his career and experience to date. So please introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Herbert, and this is my sign name. So I'd like to pick Herbert's brain in this interview. So through your career, approximately 40 years now, or possibly even more, and of course you're retired now, do you see any ongoing problems? Well, it's 50 years ago now, and back then there was a strong deaf community, but access to information was limited. There was no interpreters and no social media presence. We could only meet up through the Deaf Club, sharing the information through word of mouth. As new technology was introduced, people became more independent and didn't need to meet face to face anymore. If you needed to know where to meet, you could just check your phone and get on your way. Was that a good or a bad development, do you think? I think there's two sides to it, really. On the one hand, you're learning more now compared to going to the deaf centre, but it was an enclosed setup. You didn't know what was going on in the outside world as much. By engaging with social media, it allowed us to learn about various activities, art, museums, sport, specialist interest groups like motorbikes. Phones allowed us to learn about all of that. Deaf people don't need to be sat at home bored, they can just check their phones and crack on. Very different compared to 50 years ago, where there was only one deaf club which everyone flocked to. So access to information is better now compared to back then, but a problem still remains. Humans are still the same now as they were 50 years ago. Problems with emotions, mental health, relationships. But access to information is easier now compared to back then. Today, I'd say most people don't really understand what's happening in their minds and their head. I've met various deaf people that complain about feeling sick, a headache, or migraine, and they're not sure what to do about it. Would you agree with that? I'd say everyone knows about tinnitus and migraines as things that you just have to put up with. However, my wife saw white flashes and naturally thought it was strange, so decided to go to the opticians and told them about it. They sent her straight to the hospital. We came to learn that seeing white flashes is an indicator that you have a stroke incoming. Historically, deaf people have experienced the same white flashes and ignored them, but if you see the flashing light and don't address them, you will have a stroke. Luckily, my wife addressed the flashing light early. It's called TIA. It has a longer name, I can't spell it, but it's abbreviated to TIA. There is another type of stroke called BPPV. It's linked to tinnitus and migraines. Symptoms for both TIA and BPPV can overlap. With BPPV, some people see flashing colour. That's fine. It's when the flashes are white they need to be addressed as soon as possible. It's common for deaf people to experience these various issues, put up with them and say they'll deal with them later. They feel they can cope and just crack on. But really, they should go straight to their GP to get their professional advice. Recently, you've been doing a lot in Indonesia. Can you talk to us about that? So my work there, just to clarify, this sign means Indonesia. It's near Australia. I've been working there for 6 years now, going back and forth. 6 years, wow. If you want to set up a research project there, you can't just drop in and out. You need to develop a relationship, understand the culture, the government, and their organisations. Really get involved. Indonesians are fed up of people claiming they have helped them after a flying visit. That's why it's important to take your time and develop a relationship. Whilst in Indonesia, I learnt from them first, enabling me to set up a framework to then pass it over to the WFD, World Federation of the Deaf, allowing them to then distribute it to other countries. Gosh, how interesting, 6 years. developing, encouraging, and educating. So during your time working with them, what was your biggest challenge? I had to learn their culture and their lifestyle. It's different to the UK. We have benefits, social services. They don't have anything like that. If an Indonesian has a problem, there's nothing to support them. How can you live like that? It's hard. How do you resolve issues like this? Have you found the answer? What is the answer? I've encouraged them to set up a women's group and a men's group. Get support from hearing people outside of them to come and teach them. Encourage them to take on responsibilities, to keep learning, to better themselves. Also, the hearing and deaf community don't know each other. They need to develop a relationship. Get the hearing people to help them, train them, develop their signing, their communication, and have the appropriate assessments. That's lots of paperwork involved. They need to go to the government, to universities. I'm training the universities in psychology. It's previously never incorporated the deaf community, but it does now, due to new policy from the Deaf Association. Mental health stability is acknowledged, so small changes. There's lots of young people there, and they are more aware of mental health due to social media, which is great. They're open to talking about their feelings more. It is harder with older people. Influencing older people can be difficult if they're stubborn and if they're following traditions. Do they ever feel you're offending them by saying, "I know better than you, this is my strategy," or do they calmly accept it? It is funny. The older people there often think that they're older than me when I am older than them. I have to keep that quiet. What do you think we need to do to improve deaf mental health awareness here in the UK? One issue is we can't report the NHS. It starts with research. By doing this, you'll be able to compare the statistics between deaf and hearing, showing how deaf people struggle more with mental health. This will then prompt the government to act. Recently, a deaf person took their own life. What's your professional opinion on what went wrong? How could it have been avoided? The UK National Suicide Project research shows that approximately 7,500 people take their own life every year. It happens. It's not new, but been happening for years. Of that figure, 75% of them are men and 25% are women. Quite the gap between men and women there. A higher rate for both deaf and hearing men. You're right, however, that it is harder for deaf people to access support if they're upset, depressed, or thinking about suicide. Where do they go? There isn't any online support. Some deaf people can't read or text. If you were upset and angry but couldn't text, the process of texting is infuriating. You just want to dash your phone and instinctively sign to let it out instead. Whereas a hearing person is struggling, they can quickly pick up the phone and chat at their own pace. If you're upset, you're forced to accommodate to a professional's rate of understanding BSL. That's no good. Yeah, that must be frustrating. The support worker knows me, but they have to remain confidential. But the interpreter also knows me. The option for appropriate support is far and few between. So what's the way around that, do you think? Artificial intelligence, AI? Gosh, we have to be careful in the absence of humans. AI would be sympathetic, but replacing humans, the thought of it makes me anxious. It's a difficult situation. Take a counsellor, or anybody really that isn't involved in the deaf community. They can be a safe person. Some of my friends work in the support sector but don't work within our community for fear of crossing a professional boundary. They want to go out partying as friends together, but you can't do that if you also have a professional relationship. I can imagine a support professional might want to socially get involved in the deaf community, but realise they have a crossover of clients. It limits their freedom. There needs to be training on that, how to incorporate that into a normal life routine. They should get involved in the community. It doesn't matter. It's just normal life. That is hard. I want to say a huge thank you to Herbert for his time, sharing all of his knowledge. It's important that we try to minimise a crisis, or if there was a past crisis or difficult chapter. There is a new VRS service now. Yes, of course. Can you explain what the service is? It's like Sign Video, Sign Wow, or Sign Live, but it's called Video Relay Service. More and more companies are being set up in this vein. If you are struggling, you can also contact BSL 999 and choose video support. They have to use an interpreter through that service. It can be frustrating receiving letters you don't understand, causing unnecessary panic, like receiving fines. Recently we had the issue with the winter payments and confusion over extra payment. Services like Sign Wow and RAD are out there to support you. We need to make sure deaf people know how to use those services. Unfortunately, there are a lot of deaf people that don't know how to use VRS. We need to get that information out there and hopefully people will feel empowered. There are various organisations like Sign Wow, Sign Video, Sign Live, all with interpreters. So please utilise their services. It's important, certainly before the support disappears. Someone was telling me recently how they went to a bank. Their problem wasn't resolved and they were fed up of going in. However, all banks now have to provide a VRS option in their app, but this person didn't know that. Similar with SignWow, for example. Some people don't know about clicking on the drop-down for itemised shopping or airport purchases, a real variation of options. I do think it's the VRS company's responsibility to spread that awareness, educating the community of all the different things that can be done on their apps. And the more deaf people that know that, the better. Hopefully the spread of such awareness will minimise mental health issues. Also, if a deaf person needs to access Lloyd's TSB, for example, the option for VRS should pop up on their website. Any online retailer will have it. I utilised it for British Airways recently. On their website, I clicked on the VRS option, got through to an interpreter, and resolved the problem of getting the wrong date for my flight resolved nice and promptly. That's an easy life. Fantastic. Well, I'd encourage more awareness of how you can utilise VRS. Just to clarify, VRS uses human interpreters, not AI. That's an important difference. Correct. I really appreciate your time and the depth you've gone into today. Take care, everyone. Nice to meet you.